Amateur spelunkers Arnold, Rick, and Don came across an underground UFO base while exploring one of the many old iron mine shafts located in Newfoundland province. This, then, is the very own weird tale from the twilight zone of reality. Although now generally known, one of these mines, one of the deepest by the way, has caused much concern and controversy among the local populace. Shortly after it had been dug to its maximum depth, strange things began to happen. Miners working late at night in small groups of 6 to 10 began hearing noises, not rumbling or other natural mine noises, but what some described as strange music. It seemed to come from all around them, sometimes faint and sometimes distinct. Later, some said they heard mumbling and voices. This went on for several months, but only the miners who heard the noises were disturbed or concerned. Then more serious things began to happen. One of the men entered the mine late at night to check on some equipment, and when he finished and started to leave, some small men grabbed him from behind, knocked his lamp from his hands, and shot him with something that forced him violently against the mine wall, knocking him unconscious. In the morning, workers found him apparently none the worse for his experience physically, but quite shaken mentally. He said he would never again enter a mine, and promptly dropped out of the occupation. A few days later, a miner on night watch disappeared. Investigators found his lamp and hat deep within the mine, but no trace of the miner. Soon lights and machinery began to fail or work erratically for no apparent reason. Men became hesitant to work the mine. Finally, it was condemned and shut down. This was the mine in which our Canadian friend was interested and wanted us to help investigate. Although spelunking is usually confined to exploration of naturally formed caves, our curiosity was great enough to spur us on to such an unusual form of research. We arrived in the mining town, which was near the Newfoundland-Quebec border, at 10:30 a.m. on March the 22nd, 1961, and lodged at the local hotel. The next day, we got our equipment together, loaded up our jeep, and headed for the mine. At the entrance, we were stopped by 2 policemen, who warned us not to go inside. When we persisted, they threatened to arrest us, so we left, resolving to return on foot after dark. At 1:30 a.m. we again set out for the mine. This time we bypassed the police and approached the mine from a different direction. We met no interference along the way and shortly arrived at the entrance. While Rick Grayton, my American friend, stayed at the entrance as lookout, Don Lawrence, our Canadian friend, and I descended into the mine. It was in excellent shape and showed no signs of any deterioration whatsoever. Hardly the type of mine the government would condemn on its physical state alone. We had just completed our preliminary investigation when we heard someone, apparently deep within the mine, shout in a high-pitched voice, "Come!" We stopped dead in our tracks and walked in the general direction from where the voice seemed to originate. Then we heard somebody or something running. We lighted a flare but saw nothing. We continued again and heard the running. By this time we were getting far back in the mine and also very curious and excited. The running sounds ceased abruptly, and we saw a faint blue light radiate from a far recess. Then we heard what we thought was the clank of a metal door closing. We quickly found the area from which we saw the lights radiating, but no door or opening could be found. However, upon tapping the walls with my pick hammer, we heard hollow metallic reports at several places. After we had localized the hollow-sounding area, we marked it off by chiseling off pieces of rock and found that it was generally rectangular in shape, almost 5 feet in height and about 2 feet wide. Since we could investigate no further with the equipment at hand, we decided to come back the following night and continue our investigation. Returning the following night, All three of us entered the mine. Very much to our surprise, the chisel marks were gone. It took us several minutes to find the hollow area again, but we finally did, and this time we had come prepared. Using a battery-powered rock drill, we penetrated about 3 inches into the rock when we struck metal. We withdrew it and substituted a bit designed to drill into metal. Eventually, we breached the metal and, withdrawing the drill, we again saw the soft blue light shining as before. Suddenly, we heard a low humming noise, and we were startled to see the section of the wall we were working on abruptly lift out of sight. It would be an understatement to say we were frightened. What lay before us was incomprehensible. A blue-lighted corridor, which appeared to be made of some sort of translucent, seamless, self-illuminating blue-coloured metal or plastic. At first, we were very apprehensive about investigating the enigmatic hallway. Our curiosity soon overcame our fear, however, and we entered the corridor. We had to stoop, for the hallway was only 5 feet in height. After walking about 50 yards, we came to another corridor leading off to our left and decided to explore it. We reached the end of the corridor after walking about 100 yards. There we encountered a steep, spiralling stairway. We descended it for at least 20 minutes, all the while noting that the lighting was becoming more brilliant. Finally, we reached the bottom and were confronted with yet another corridor, but this one light green in colour. After a brief rest, we set off down that corridor. It was only about 100 feet long, and we traversed it quickly. To the right and left were oval entrances. Making a quick decision, we decided to enter the one on the right, and noticed immediately that it was cylindrical shaped and much larger than the previous passageways. It contained a floor on the same level as the previous ones. We also noted that this passage was evidently made of some crystalline substance, and that a bright but soft white light emanated from it. It curved downward at a slight angle. We next came to a huge chamber, which appeared to be some type of scientific laboratory and hydroponic garden. In one section were rows of giant exotic plants, and in another some type of chemistry equipment. Lining the walls of this laboratory were arrays of multi-sized TV screens, dials and gauges, and other electronic equipment. Some of the screens were at least 10 feet square. In the centre section was a great mass of scintillating vari-coloured crystal. It had a rough, natural exterior and apparently performed some unknown function. The rest of the chamber contained many other strange devices and apparatus that none of us could identify. The entire ceiling was one great light. At its far end stood something that looked like a car lift, with a disc-shaped metal object resting on it. We decided to take a closer look at it. Fortunately, the lift was only about 2 feet off the floor, and we got a good look at the object. It was circular in shape, about 35 feet in diameter and 4 feet in thickness. Suddenly, Don exclaimed, "It's a flying saucer!" We both agreed. We had indeed found a UFO. Rick stepped up on the lift to take a more detailed look at the saucer. He tapped on it lightly with his hammer, and parts of it sounded hollow. Immediately after he tapped on one certain spot, an entire section of its tail dematerialized. This took Rick totally by surprise, and he almost fell off the lift platform. About 1/2 of the inner mechanism was revealed to us, and again we could not find a single piece of equipment with which we were familiar. The only thing we could surmise was that the object was a remotely controlled device, since there was no space provided for passengers that we could see. Rick jumped down from the lift, and we continued our investigation of the laboratory. Abruptly, the lift was activated and began to drop to the floor, and at the same time the lighting in the chamber changed from a soft white to a deep red. In short order, the screen directly above and to the right of us flashed on. Due to the unnatural lighting, we could not make out the image on the screen. Then we heard a voice from the screen. It said, in a high-pitched voice, "You have been expected. You have been observed since you first entered our domain. You gaze upon the upper regions of our world. You are the first of your kind to be permitted this privilege. Let it be known this truth. We harbour you no ill will. We depend not upon your superficial world for our sustenance or pleasure. Those of your kind who make themselves the interpreters of our intentions are naught but the Bacanish deceivers of your civilization. Let it again be said that we desire man no harm, and wish only to pursue our independent existence on this our mutual planet. We shall not influence nor bring to you discord in any medium. We are not doers of evil. Our world spans the inner gulf of your globe. We have existed since before your time. Had we wished harm upon you, we would also have been its receivers. We beg you a friendly farewell, and hope our message will be heeded and find wide acceptance among those of your kind who find it necessary to concern themselves with our domain." The screen then faded, without our having seen a clearly defined image of the person who had spoken. Luckily, Don had quickly written in his notebook what the voice had said to us. The red lighting in the chamber suddenly became even deeper in tint, and all of us felt light-headed. Rick shouted that he was going to faint and started to fall, but we caught him. Then we too had the same feeling and blacked out. When we regained consciousness, we found ourselves lying outside the mine entrance. We still retained our personal effects, notebooks, pencils, wallets, etc., but all our equipment, such as safety hats, pick hammers and chisels, and our Geiger counter, had disappeared. After returning to the States, Don found all the pages of his notebook burned or charred, as though it had been thrown into a roaring fire. The notebook cover, however, which was made of plastic, was surprisingly undamaged. All of us had worn wristwatches with radium dials. Some weeks later, the radium became inactive, and the dials no longer glowed in the dark.